The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast, presented to you by Jägermeister. Give your beer a real shot this summer with an ice cold shot of Jägermeister. Cody Saftic here with me. A big fan of Jägermeister.
Very big fan of Jägermeister.
How do you drink your Jägermeister?
Just right on ice. There's not a whole lot of drinks I like on the rocks, but
You should
Jägermeister.
put it into your beer this summer, pal.
You gotta have it nice. I don't know about that. I don't like alcohol in my beer. I like beer in my beer, and alcohol preferably in my mouth.
Have you ever tried it?
What? Alcohol in my beer? Yeah, you always get those like Smirnoff Rockets, or to be honest, you know, like lime beer and
Don't
like
knock it if
orange
you haven't
beer.
tried it.
I'm gonna take some flack for saying this right off the bat, right? But like, IPAs aren't my thing. Craft beer, not my thing. My beer,
Coors Light?
no, that's, yeah, I like something flavorful. Miller High Life, preferably.
Oh.
Or Coors Banquet. Love me a cold
Nothing
Banquet.
like the low lifes. Miller Low
Yeah.
Lifes.
You know, it's funny. I drank that stuff forever. Love it. Now it's back in Canada. Drink it again. Love it. But I read some stupid review on it. Actually, it was like 50 reviews on it. And literally, nobody seems to like it. Apparently, it's like a poor man's beer. But yeah, that's my stuff. The High Life.
All right, let's this card maybe is the Miller High Life of UFC cards.
Sorry to cut you off, Paul. This is the kind of card you would love to have a Miller High Life during, but it's like 6 a.m, so it's really hard to justify why I'm going to get tanked for it.
Here in Toronto, you know, if you drink all night, you drink overnight, you may just, those High Lifes may roll you right into this one. I don't know if you're going to see the main event at that type of pace, but who knows?
Yeah, who
Crazier
knows?
things have happened. Anyway, let's get into the action of UFC Singapore going down this Saturday morning, essentially. And in the main event, we have Leon Edwards taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Leon Edwards is 8,600 on DraftKings, minus 210 on the betting line. Donald Cowboy Cerrone is 7,600 plus 175. I know where I stand on this one, but I'm interested to see where you're going with it.
I kind of feel like I'm going back and forth a little bit. I was leaning towards Leon Edwards. This is a theory on a lot of these fights, but you got your aging veteran in Donald Cerrone. You got your guy that's been around the block many times over. I mean, he's going for the UFC wins record here. I think that's just a testament of how long Donald Cerrone's been competing at a high level, and obviously in the UFC. And at some point, these guys start to decline, and that next generation of guys takes them over. And Leon Edwards has given us every indication that he's kind of one of those next generation guys. Outside of losing to Kamaru Usman, and obviously against Claudio da Silva way back, the guy's been near perfect in the UFC. He's got a good, solid winning streak. He kind of shows us off different wrinkles of his game every time. A lot of people going back to, say, the Albert Tumanov fight, a lot of people didn't think, well, he's not going to be able to strike with Tumanov, and he's not a particularly good wrestler. Guy's been working a lot on his wrestling. Guy's grappling has gotten infinitely better. And then going all the way to his last fight against Peter Sabota, I mean, you always get these questions with him. The Brian Barberena fight. How is he going to outgrind Brian Barberena? But he does. His last fight against Peter Sabota, well, you can't really go to ground Sabota. Obviously you can, but, you know, he's a black belt. Maybe he makes it interesting. You know, Edwards hasn't shown us much striking power, but the striking's there. You know,
Knocked out Seth Baczynski, but...
Knocked out Seth Baczynski in like 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how much you can take away from that, but if you're going to take away anything, it's that he's got a little bit of power.
He does have the capability to just barnstorm somebody.
And
that's
he's
that is the path to victory against Donald Cerrone.
That's exactly it. So again, in my mind, it's like, okay, the younger, quicker, more agile athlete on his way up is going to catch Donald Cerrone. Donald Cerrone can be in those fun fights still. Donald Cerrone can get one over against other aging fighters. You know, he can slip one out. But at the end of the day, if you are going to bring the heat to Donald Cerrone and you're capable of taking a couple shots on the way in, you can get in this guy's face. You can break him. But now looking at this fight stylistically, again, Donald Cerrone, if you're just going to have a straight striking battle with him, or especially over the course of 5 rounds, you got to be a good striker. You got to be able to hurt him. You got to be able to get his respect. You got to be able to get him second guessing himself and getting in his head. And I don't know that Leon Edwards is good enough to beat Donald Cerrone in a straight kickboxing match. So if the game plan for Edwards, and it's been the game plan many of times, is clinch this guy, get him up against the fence, take him down, I don't know that you can do that against Cerrone either, because traditionally, when Donald Cerrone loses, he's not getting held down. He's very good off his back, and the guy spent a lot of time working on his wrestling. Taking him down is going to be difficult. In fact, I think the wrestling advantage goes to Donald Cerrone. Maybe we see him try to go get the takedown against Leon Edwards. So this is a very close fight for me personally. The plus 175 as far as the money line goes, I think it's worth a shot to say Donald Cerrone he's definitely shot porn. But is he shot? I don't think quite yet. Yes, the George Masvidals of the world are going to hit this guy. They're going to connect this guy. They're going to knock this guy out. But Leon Edwards isn't that kind of striker. So if this is going to go multiple rounds and Cerrone can get a little bit of confidence in there, he fights the best when he's got confidence. And this is every indication that maybe he's got a shot. This to me is a very close fight. So the plus 175, I don't mind that. The 7,600, if you're going to give me 5 rounds of Donald Cerrone takedowns, Donald Cerrone striking, Donald Cerrone maybe even some submission attempts, if he does get the fight to the ground, he's going to try to transition because Edwards is not going to sit there and take it. He's going to scramble to get back up. Maybe he's able to take his back. Maybe he's able to, the fight gets back up and Donald Cerrone can get another takedown. He's taken down better guys than Leon Edwards. He's taken down good wrestlers like Rick Story. He's taken down big guys like Patrick Cote. Edwards is a quicker guy than both of them. But again, Donald Cerrone should have, he's not, even though he's the 55er fighting a 170, this is not like the Darren Till fight where he's taking on a middleweight or a light heavyweight and he's a former lightweight. Leon Edwards isn't particularly huge for the weight class. So I think it's a close fight. I guess I'm kind of leaning Cerrone, but I don't love it.
The thing about Leon Edwards, and this always happens in the other way. Usually it's like we have a wrestler and he falls in love with his striking. Leon Edwards is a striker that fell in love with his wrestling. And there's been a few times that, he hasn't got burned for it yet. But, in that Sabata fight, I was heavily exposed to him on DraftKings. And I was going, what are you doing? Just stand with this guy. You have a massive advantage on the feet. And for whatever reason, he's going for takedowns against Sabata, who, on paper at least, the BJJ advantage was going to be for Sabata.
Yeah.
So it's I know that he's adding those wrinkles. He wants to show that he's a fully developed martial artist, but it's kind of like a red flag to me where it's just you are not finding the path of least resistance to these victories. That being said, maybe he comes out here very, very smart and comes with fury at Donald Cerrone. We know that's always been the template. You come at Cerrone in the first 4 minutes, don't let him really settle into that fight.
Yeah.
And he can crumble. But Leon Edwards, besides the Seth Baczynski fight, hasn't really shown us
a very long time ago.
I could see him trying to go and take down Cerrone immediately. It's really tough to know what Leon Edwards is going to do in this fight. I also, from a DraftKings perspective, 7,600. I just think, if this does go 5 rounds, or even if we get to rounds 4 or whatever, it's decent value on Cerrone, who I wouldn't be surprised if this is a stand-up battle between the two of them, and Cerrone is just more active. Once he really settles into his groove, he's throwing quite a bit of strikes. So he's very, very his volume is very, very high. Leon Edwards, for the most part, he's a one-shot kind of guy. So his volume is 6. I don't know the exact stat off the top of my head right now, but it's super low. It's 6 significant strikes or 4 significant strikes per minute or something like that. I saw a stat online about it. So preferred play, Donald Cerrone. But this almost feels like one of those moments that
do I want the old war dog?
The fight's gonna happen, and all of a sudden Leon Edwards is gonna storm crowd, like the Till one. We were blindsided by the Till one. Just because Till was very similar. It's very low volume, never really attacks his opponent, and just he's smart though. There's smart game planning from him, and we've seen that in all of his fights. Basically, he always finds the path of least resistance and the way that he can win that fight. And he just came right across and just basically attacked Donald Cerrone. I don't know if I'm not going to say that Leon Edwards has proven that he has the same ring IQ, essentially, as Darren Till. So this turns into a 5-round fight, 7,600 plus 175. Those are where I'm leaning at this point. I probably, on DraftKings for sure, I'll have a bunch of Cerrone. I'm not sure. Maybe Leon Edwards is a decent GPP type of style, because if he wins, probably going to be pretty early. But that's where I stand on it.
Outside of the Baczynski fight, which again happened a very long time ago, and the Peter Sabata fight, he happened to knock him out in the 3rd round. He's not an early finish guy. No. He's not a guy that goes out there and beats you early. He's a guy that goes out there and just beats you over the course of 3 rounds. Also, it's not like he's going out there and 30-27ing all these guys. He's having some close rounds in between, but his cardio's not bad. And if you start to get tired in the 2nd round, he's able to pull it out in the 3rd round, maybe edge you on a 29-28, get the victory. But again, I think it's so difficult to compare him to Darren Till because they're just 2 way different guys. Darren Till's looking to stand and strike all of the time. Darren Till believes in his own mind that he can knock out any man on this planet, let alone in his weight class. And Darren Till is a massive human being. Mm-hmm. Whereas Leon Edwards is not quite that big. He's not quite that much of a power puncher. And if the game plan is pick away at Donald Cerrone from range. Well, again, Yancy Medeiros had good range. Yancy Medeiros was a good striker. But if you don't have that, I'm going to knock him out right off the bat, then you allow Donald Cerrone to fight his way into it. And he is
It's like Matt
as
Brown.
much...
Matt Brown let Donald Cerrone get into that fight. And then as Cerrone is a savvy old vet, figures out range and figures out where he can kick you from and so on and so forth. He starts chewing that leg. Then when you start kind of reacting to the leg kicks, that's when he starts going over top.
That's exactly it. And Donald Cerrone probably in his own mind is thinking, oh man, I don't know, maybe he's worrying about it. But if you look at traditionally the guys that go out there and zap him out in the first round, whether it be Till, whether it be Rafael Dos Anjos, whether it be Anthony Pettis, or whether it be someone like Nate Diaz who just slapped the shit out of him for 3 rounds, all these guys were like, I'm coming to get you. I don't get that impression out of Leon Edwards because that's not how he fights. Is he going to change his game plan for this one? Maybe. That's what game plans are for. But as you mentioned, not really the kind of guy that follows the right proper game plan. So
he was taking down Sabata. That was the one spot where he could get in trouble in that fight. I was screaming at my television. It worked out. He ended up scoring 98 points. But
of course. He got the third round finish.
It was so nerve-wracking watching that fight. So
yep, I hear you.
I think we're more or less on the same page here. Let's move to the light heavyweight division. We have Ovince St. Preux taking on Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro, 8,200 on DraftKings, minus 125 on the betting line. Ovince St. Preux is 8,000 and plus 105. Interesting one here. A lot of people probably thinking, oh, it's time to fully fade Ovince St. Preux. But I'm a little bit nervous about this one for Tyson Pedro. Where do we see Tyson Pedro have his most success? By bullying guys up against the cage and dominating them in the grappling exchanges. And when he can't dominate somebody in the grappling exchanges, what happens? He gets Latifi'd. Latifi just...
A lot of people get Latifi'd.
Ovince St. Preux got Latifi, but it was more of a knockout type of situation. I think Ovince St. Preux is going to be able to be competitive with him on the ground, and I think Ovince St. Preux probably has the striking advantage over Tyson Pedro. I haven't seen enough from Pedro to lead me to believe that he's good enough on the feet. Like, he was getting boxed up by, who was that jobber he fought last time?
Last time. Safarov.
Yeah.
Serbek Safarov?
Was it Safarov? Yeah, I believe it was.
He submitted
the guy
him.
who looks like he's like 47 years old.
Yeah. And he was able to get him with a first round submission, which I don't see happening necessarily.
But he was getting boxed up against that guy. Like, Safarov was landing stuff. It was just like, it was a bad look, man.
Fair, but if we've seen anything from Safarov, because he literally doesn't have 2 knees, he's going to just wing punches at you. Very awkward, very hard to prepare for. You can beat the guy, but you got to probably be able to withstand the early strikes. I don't know, man. I got a hunch on this that Pedro probably knocks out OSP. OSP is a guy that's been around for a very long time, and I do believe he has the wrestling advantage. If his game plan is go in there against Tyson Pedro, score takedowns on him, and try to big brother him, then yeah, that's probably the way to beat a guy like Tyson Pedro. We saw when Tyson Pedro took on Ilir Latifi that it was just takedowns were there all day long. And once this guy's now on his back, and once this guy's starting to get tired.
When you're talking about Ilir Latifi, you're talking about a stocky 5'8" wrestler who's insanely strong.
Tyson,
like, that's just like a terrible matchup if you want to.
I get it. But Tyson Pedro's 7-1, so he's looked really good outside of one fight, and that fight happened to be the Ilir Latifi fight. And what happened to him in that fight?
His only legitimate opponent he looked good against.
No, he lost, and he lost to Ilir Latifi.
I mean, like, his only legitimate opponent is who he actually he's beaten Safarov, Paul the Bear Jew Craig, and Khalil Roundtree. All guys who would vie for Paul Shaughnessy's worst guy in the light heavyweight division trophy.
Tyson Pedro is a young, developing guy, right? So those are all good learning experiences for him. He's still going to get better and better. He was training at Jackson Winklejohn. He was adding new wrinkles to his game. He was getting better. He surrounds himself with the best guys when he's back home in New Zealand. I have to feel like there's a momentum wave going with those guys. You know, Mark Hunt's probably the old warrior, not getting any better, but he led that charge for those future generation guys. And now you're seeing good up-and-coming prospects come out of that. A Tai Tuivasa, for random example, Tai Tuivasa. Everybody said this guy couldn't fight past 1 round, myself included, by the way.
I told you that he's the
Yeah. Everybody likes Ty. You know, he's doing shoeies, he's got big power, right?
Athletic for a fat boy.
The guy actually looked pretty good in the 3rd round against Arlovsky. His cardio wasn't bad, but the thing is that he's young, he's athletic, he's training hard, and he's getting better. He's making improvements. You don't throw the guy in the deep water right away. And quite honestly, him fighting Arlovsky is kind of the deep end of the heavyweight division, considering how bad it is. But you got to build these guys up, which is why he got to fight Cyril Lasker, which is why he got to fight Rashad Rashad Coulter. You got to build these guys up, and eventually they can take on bigger tests. Tyson Pedro, he shouldn't have never been there against Leo Latifi. Whoever put that fight together is a moron.
Yeah.
Not on a matchmaking standpoint. The guy accepted it, sure, but who is managing him?
Latifi's a top 10 guy.
Why would you take that fight so young into your career? You got to fight Safarov. You got to fight guys like Bearju. You got to fight these guys that you can beat up. Khalil Roundtree, one-dimensional guys that allow you to work on your game a little bit. What he showed against Roundtree is he got a good chin because he got dropped by Roundtree. He got back up. He got the takedown. He got the submission. With Safarov, he's getting hit. He takes the shots. He's able to get that submission. Against OSP, I don't know that the submission's there, so he's got to revert back to his striking. And the reason why I think he can beat a guy like Oven St. Preux in the striking department and maybe even knock him out is that OSP's got a tendency of doing fuck all. He'll stand there and he'll just stare at you. It's almost like 205-pound, massively jacked, super athletic Sam Alvey. He doesn't do nothing. If he hits you, he has a powerful shot, but he doesn't do enough. And a lot of the times he allows himself to get backed up to the cage. When he fought Volkan Ozdemir was actually on short notice, and OSP's a big favorite over him. The problem was is that he sat for the first 2 rounds with his back flush up against the cage and didn't do anything. He looks to counter, but he allows his opponent to get off quicker than him, right? He's done this in the past many of times with many opponents. His fight with Jimmy Manuwa, he backed himself right to the cage. He stood there and he got hit. And Manuwa's a good striker. Manuwa's guy got power. He's able to hit him. He's going to help to put him down. When I look at this fight, the path of victory is there for both guys. OSP probably could stand with Tyson Pedro. He could probably strike with Tyson Pedro. But if we're looking for path of least resistance, take the guy down. He's not particularly that good off his back. You're a better wrestler than him. You've taken down better guys than Tyson Pedro. Go out there and take him down. But I know with OSP, the fight's going to start. He's going to stand right in front of Tyson Pedro. He's not going to be urgent for those takedowns initially. And I just feel like he's going to get hit with something that's going to hurt him. Even in the last fight with Ilir Latifi, he actually gets knocked out twice, standing and then choked out unconscious. Now I know he wasn't actually knocked out standing. What I'm saying is that he starts to back down Latifi, the much shorter guy. He's not throwing anything. Latifi just smacks him with a huge shot, hurts him. We've seen this guy hurt before, and I feel like Tyson Pedro, a young guy, getting better, got some knockouts on his record, has some good power, might be able to catch him. When I look at $8,200 on DraftKings, I feel like if he can get the first round knockout on a guy like Oven St. Preux, I'd be over the moon. If worst case scenario, not worst case, but he gets a victory and it's just him holding OSP against the cage the whole time. Because there's another thing with OSP. You can control him up against the cage. He's not going to grind you against the cage the entire time. He'll keep his back against the cage and he'll allow you to work. You can steal some rounds off this guy. And even if he comes alive in the 3rd round, like the Volkan Ozdemir fight, he comes alive in the 3rd round, but he's already down 2 rounds because he hasn't done anything. So he loses a decision. For the 8,200, even if he doesn't get 82 points, but he can still get me 70, 75 points, it's a good enough price tag that I would take him. And finally, the line's pretty close, 125 to plus 105.
It's close to a pick 'em. It's
close enough to a pick 'em that I'm not feeling I got to chase dog money on OSP, so I think I would just take Tyson Pedro. Again, this is a card full of close fights. I'm not super confident on this fight, but when I think about it, I feel like Tyson Pedro can get the victory here. And if he does, and he can get that knockout, the 8,200 would be a good play for DraftKings.
All right, so Cody likes Tyson Pedro. I like Oven St. Preux. I don't love Oven St. Preux, but I'm leaning with the more veteran guy in this division to get the job done. Maybe establish range and win. Win, I think, will be a close fight. We move on down. We got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Jessica I. 8,500 for Clark and 7,700 for I. Minus 130 on the betting line, Clark. Plus 110 I. We got. I
feel like the fade on Jess Rose Clark's been there for a while. It's just maybe not the right time to pull the trigger. She comes on short notice against Beck Rawlings, and quite honestly, she missed weight. It was short notice. The thing is, for me personally, Beck Rawlings is not even really that big of a 115.
Bare knuckle boxing champion, legend. Some would even say.
She doesn't seem like that big of a straw weight. So she's coming up to 125 against Rose Clark, who's coming down from 35, misses weight, much bigger than her, not even really that pretty of a fight, just does a little more than Beck Rawlings, who is no longer in the UFC.
She did come on short notice, though.
She did come on short notice, we'll give her that. So now she gets Paige Van Zandt. And you know what? I give her more respect in the Paige Van Zandt fight, because Paige Van Zandt, not even really that big of a straw weight. Moving up, taking on Jess Rose Clark, who's coming down from 35. She's much bigger than her. And again, it wasn't like that was a blowout. Paige Van Zandt broke her arm and then was at least able to just keep this chick at bay and kick her for a lot of time. But again, Jess Rose Clark does what she's got to do. She gets the victory, no problem. But she's essentially just taken on 2 straw weights who weren't really that good to begin with. Paige Van Zandt 7-4 in the UFC now. Beck Rawlings I think she was 10-7, not a very pretty record. Obviously, both women, well, Paige Van Zandt will have a job for a little bit, but they're not really UFC caliber, so to speak. Jessica Ai's she had a terrible streak, right, until she got her win over Kalindra Ferrier her last time out. But there's no denying that 125 is where this girl should have been all the time, because she was a small 35er. She's not some strawweight coming up to fight a big girl like Jessie Jess. She's a girl that fought at 35. And even though she didn't have a whole lot of success, she fought the who's of girls at 35. She fought former world title challengers. She fought girls that were at the, the top of the division, the Juliana Peñas of the world, obviously Misha Tates of the world. She fought good competition, and even though she was losing those fights, didn't give a terrible account of herself. We saw glimpses of excellence out of her in that obviously she's a boxer. She wants to keep the fight standing. Her fight with Leslie Smith was basically a picture-perfect matchup for her in that I'm faster than this girl. This girl's kind of herky-jerky. I'm going to get off quicker. I'm going to hit her with combinations. I'm going to bust her up. And even though Leslie Smith is still there, her ears busted up. They call it off. It was at least a good look for Jessica Ai. Since then, I realize it's been rocky road, but it's bad matchups and you generally bigger girls. She hasn't been really comfortable. I get it. If I'm going to fade a girl like Rose Clark, I feel like maybe I'm going to try that chance on Jessica Ai. I don't love it, Paul. I don't. But with Rose Clark, she'll try to bully you to the ground because she's a lot bigger than you. But if that doesn't come to fruition in this fight, Jessica Ai spent a lot of time on her takedown defense.
Ai, when she took on Sarah McMahon, who is obviously leaps and bounds better wrestler.
Leaps and bounds.
Nothing happened in that fight, but that was good in the sense that she wasn't able to completely dominate Jessica Ai in the wrestling department. So if you're able to do that against Sarah McMahon, like
the best wrestler in the division, not the best fighter in the division.
No, like that fight was god awful. I don't think you have to play either one of these.
No, I mean, I'm just saying who I think's going to win. If this turns into a 3-round decision, I wouldn't play either of them.
Like, I think if this turns into a 3-round decision,
I think it will.
What is the winner score? Like 60 points? Like, I know Jess Rose Clark, because she's been able to secure takedowns, like she averages like 94 points. Oh, there it is, 94.5 points in her 2 UFC fights, but this is a step up in competition. It's
also a different stylistical matchup. You're taking on a bigger fighter who, if she can keep the fight standing, is going to have a speed advantage and going to have a boxing advantage. So all of a sudden, if you look at the third round of Rawlings versus Clark, Rawlings like wakes up a little bit and realizes, shit, I'm probably down 2 rounds. I got to start doing something here. You can back this girl up. You can put it on her. I've always felt like she wasn't necessarily the most talented girl out there. You'd watch her fight in Invicta. She fought once for Battlegrounds up in Korea. She lost to Sarah Kaufman. Again, when she fights higher level of competition, girls that are her size, she's not all that quick. Now, she made the move to Las Vegas. She's been training very hard. You see in these fights that she is getting better. She looked better against Rawlings than she did in previous efforts. She looked a little bit better than Paige Van Zandt than previous efforts. But again, both those fights are against, low-level competition who were undersized. Now you're getting mid-level competition that should be the same size as you, if not a lot bigger than the last 2 girls you fought. I feel like she gets the job done. The biggest thing, though, is you're right. She doesn't do a whole lot, Jessica Ai. In that Sarah McMahon fight, it's god-awful because she wants the fight standing.
But
the
she
fight
was tentative
is standing
the whole time because she's looking at it going like, I can't get taken down. I can't get taken down. And they had trained together before, so it's like a lot of times when you have people who've trained together, they know each other's tricks, and just like it kind of turns into a stalemate. And that's what happened in that fight. It was a terrible performance. Don't get me wrong, and like it was absolute DraftKings cancer. I just think that it kind of proved that she'll probably be able to stop the takedown from Jess Rose Clark, and I think this fight has DraftKings fade. Like just stay away from it. Like you don't have to. Like when you look at like just the ranges here, it's just like, are you gonna? I would rather have the winner of Tyson Pedro versus Ovince St. Preux because both guys could catch a knockout, or they could score really really high. This Rose Clark versus Ai fight, it's like I think 60 points, 70 points upside as like the winner of the fight. That's not gonna do it for you in GPPs, and it's such a close fight that in cash games it's like, do I really want any of this action? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
are you confident enough in either one of these that like, they're a secure win? Probably not as well. So
no, look at Jessica Ai versus Betch Correia, and it's in Jessica Ai's backyard, right? It's that Miocic fight. It's like, okay, surely they're going to give her this decision. I thought she won the fight, but again, nothing happens. So it's like it could go either way. So do I love the bet? Nah. Plus 110, not good enough for me to take the chance on it. 77 on DraftKings, no. But I think Jessica Ai is going to get the victory here.
Jingliang takes on Daichi Abe. in the next fight here in the welterweight division. We have Jingliang as at 9,200 and minus 340. Daichi Abe is 7,000 and plus 280. Who you got?
I feel like Daichi Abe was my boy, and he
He
seriously
shot the bet against Luke Jumo.
seriously let me down against
He got
Luke
eye poked
Jumo.
though. That was dirty, man.
Yeah, but still, he
bullshit.
should have
I
had
was
a little
really
more.
upset about
You
that.
know, something about him is that you look at his record prior to signing with the UFC, and it's like, damn, this guy's talented. You know, he's quick. He's an athletic guy. He's actually, packs some decent power. He's knocking guys
Man, the
out.
ferocious comeback win against Hung-Yu Lim.
Yeah, so I pick him over Hung-Yu Lim. He's the underdog
I did
coming in
too.
here. He's unheralded. It's like, okay, Hung-Yu Lim's a guy that's been around the division. He's massive for the weight class. Like, he's going to beat Abe. And it's a close enough fight, but Abe needs to dig deep. He needs to find an extra gear. He does. I say, oh, Abe showed me something. When you got those undefeated records and you're like 5-0, 6-0, how good are you really? You beat a bunch of guys back in Japan,
yeah.
but how good are you on the world stage? I don't know. And Hung-Yu Lim's a guy that's at least established himself a little bit on the world stage. So go out there, find that second gear, beat this guy. I love it. Goes against Luke Jumo. I'm all in on this guy. I have money on this guy. I think he's going to beat Luke Jumo. That second gear is required out of him, and it's no longer there. His cardio, not very good, man. And as soon as he starts to get tired, he becomes very hittable. He doesn't counter nearly as much.
Oh, wait, no, he landed a shot and then Jumo was given the
Given the time.
That was bullshit.
Yeah, but it was a one-off shot.
He could have probably finished him. He didn't eye poke him. It was actually a punch.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Jumo finessed the ref. I remember being so tilted.
Very tilted.
So tilted.
Because I thought it was 1-1 going into that
That
third.
ruined my night. I
thought it was 1-1.
It was a terrible performance, but I thought I was getting bailed out of my terrible pick and my terrible performance. And he was able. You're in Australia. Jumo finessed the referee. It was really bad.
Basically,
I hate Luke Jumo.
Oh, me. But here's my issue with that. I thought it was 1-1 going into the third, and Abe hurts this guy, and you give both guys time to recover. Abe supposed to at least get a win back, at least get a breath back. But a Jumo who comes out and is like, oh, that rest helped me, shook the cobwebs, not all that tired. I can get this guy down. I can hold this guy up against the cage. Whatever I need to do, make this a greasy fight. Abe kind of let me down. Now, Jingliang Li, again, we had Jake Matthews over him in his last fight. The younger, quicker, better athlete should be able to get through him. I didn't think he looked particularly good in that fight. Here's a guy that had to cheat to not lose as well.
I gouged
Yeah.
Jake Matthews.
Thank God he at least lost that fight. But all the same, it's like, buddy, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to win this fight. He's a lot bigger than Abe. I feel like he's a guy that's made a lot of improvements over the last couple of years. He uses that size pretty good. They call him the leech. He's able to wear on opponents, tire them out, take them into deep waters. And even though he's got a big clunky chin, we've seen him get dropped, we've seen him get hurt, it seems to check out for the most part. If you want to go to war with this guy, he will stand in front of you. He'll win.
It's going to be a high-paced fight for sure, as long as it lasts.
Yeah, it's going to be a high-paced fight, and I feel like Abe could win the first round. Abe could hurt this guy in the first round, but if he does not cleanly knock him out in the first round, he'll again start to get tired. Jingliang Li will hang around. We've seen Lee do this before, man. Lee did this actually against Bobby Nash and Frank Camacho. He lost the first round in both those fights against the guys who are a little faster than him and probably a little more technical than him. But in the second and third round, when you start to get tired, this guy always moves forward. He's ultra aggressive. He gets in your face. Like I said, that's why they call him the leech. He will literally zap the energy out of you. And with Abe, can't trust this guy's gas tank. So part of me says that this would be a great punt play, and I am going to use him a little bit as a punt play. $7,000, Paul. He can land that shot in the first round, and we've seen Jingliang Li get dropped and get hurt early. This is a recurring theme with him. You can hurt this guy early.
Probably a little bit faster, a little bit more technical.
He's sharper, he's technical, and he's a little quicker than him. So he'll beat him to the punch early and drop him. For the $7,000, I'll take that chance. I'll take that chance that he drops him and that the guy doesn't get back up. Or that the referee says, oh, geez, he's hurt. I'm going to intervene before he has a chance to recover and then come back as version 2.0, which we see later on in fights. He's almost like one of those guys that you got to hit to wake up. Once he gets woken up, he's good. But if he gets hit and he don't wake up, he's out cold. Abe's going to get the victory. 7,000. Jingliang Li, if he beats on him, we've seen with Abe is that he'll take the beating. I don't know that I want to pay up $9,200 for this guy and not get that finish. And if it's, a high pace action back and forth fight, both guys are going to get tired. The shots are going to be a lot more labor. They're not going to be combinations. It's not going to be volume punching. It's going to be just try to nail this guy with the big punch. So I'm avoiding Jingliang Li for the $9,200. The minus 340, no chance in hell. Just don't really trust this guy and his chin. But as far as punt plays goes, I think Daichi Abe 7,000 is worth a look. And the plus 280, I mean, if you're feeling lucky, lucky. This guy is really not all that bad. And as I always talk about, you're undefeated. You haven't really been tested. You haven't had that gut check time. How good really are you? Maybe losing to Jumo was good for him. Maybe losing to Jumo made him realize that, like, man, I got to work on my cardio. Still only 28 years old. It's not like he's over the hill. It's not crazy to think that when you fight a little bit better level of competition, you as a martial artist are going to grow and get a little bit better. So if he corrected some of those cardio issues and he can stand in front of Jingliang Li and hit him and hurt him and get some respect early, I don't think it's the worst play in the world.
We move on down. We've got Peter Yan taking on Teruto Ishihara. Peter Yan is 9,300 and minus 475 favorite. Ishihara is 6,900 and plus 380. Obviously, long-awaited debut of Peter Yan. A lot of people who watch ACB love this guy. This guy's all action all the time. And it looks like they've kind of finally given up on Ishihara. Ishihara at one point was this prospect in the division.
He was getting these 340 lines.
Yeah, he's kind of been exploited at this point. Does Yan just roll here over top of Ishihara, or do you think it's closer than the line suggests?
I don't know. I feel like part of it is the fight, right? When you look at the kind of 475 for a guy making his UFC debut, then yeah, you never know what you're going to get. Peter Yan, though, is battle tested. I mean, his fight with Magomedov, the first fight, was fight of the year, Paul. This fight is as good as it gets. I remember texting my buddy Sam Zakula right away and says, like, I could count on one hand the amount of fights that were as entertaining, back and forth, spectacular as this one. And it's, it flies under the radar. It's an ACB card. It's not a UFC card. You're not getting paid $50,000 for your fight night bonus. You're not getting some award at some end of the year award show.
But you're still going to the hospital.
You are certainly going to the hospital.
And they're not covering the bill.
No, and if this guy was 30, I'd be like, damn, that was a life-changing experience. But he was like 24 at the time. It's like, okay, he will move on from this. He'll be okay. And he's looked really good from there. He got a rematch with Magomedov, and he actually defeated him. He's beaten a good level of talent in ACB, a solid 135-pound guy. With Teruto Ishihara, the one thing he's going to have some size. He's a guy that has fought at 145 pounds and didn't look particularly out of place. Very long, very lanky guy, likes to dart in and out of the pocket, has a big left hand, can set it up, can't hit you, can't hurt you. But Yan at 25 years old, has fought good guys, has developed, is a solid, strong guy. He'll take those shots and he'll likely be okay. And that's the thing with Ishihara. Like, he's got to hit you early, he's got to hurt you early, and after that, it falls out the window. His wrestling offense is so predicated on strength. There's very little technique there. He's explosive, don't get me wrong. He'll explode at you. He'll try to just bulldoze you down with an Alistair Overeem, football tackle, or get around your hips and then rip you to the ground. But beyond that, he's not really known for his ground game. We've seen him fight just lower level of competition every time out in the UFC, and they want this guy to succeed. He's a big favorite of a Gray Manier, but it turns out his counter wrestling is non-existent. Okay, well, let's give him lesser guys that he'll be able to hit and knock, and it's not happening. Artem Lobov again.
We called it here on the show. We're just like, well, basically, Ishihara is just an extremely poor man's version of Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Likes to dart in and out of the pocket, likes to utilize his range, and likes to throw a straight left. It's just like, who does Artem Lobov train with? Who is Artem Lobov the punching bag for? Conor McGregor. If Artem Lobov's not able to get ready for this guy, if he's not able to get ready for Ishihara, then he can't win a fight in the UFC. And sure enough, he went out there and it's just like, it kind of just played out perfectly. It's just like, everything that Conor does in the training room to Artem Lobov, it's like this guy's doing, but way less slow, way less power, everything obviously significantly less. He's not a world-class fighter.
No, that's it. He's one of these guys that has to land that big left-hander, and he's got to hurt you. You look at him coming off that road to the Octagon, UFC Japan, essentially. They put on these. Yeah, he takes on Hirota in the final, and then in the first round of that fight, dude, he's so much faster than Hirota. He's hitting Hirota, he's hurting Hirota. In the second and third round, it's like, this guy's getting tired because of all that explosive movement, and Hirota, savvy. It was a draw, yeah. He's a savvy, grizzly veteran, Hirota is. He's able to get some takedowns on him. He's able to just kind of slow down the pace. He's able to start hitting Ishihara, and all of a sudden, that fight ends up being a draw. Probably the right call. Julian Erosa catches him fairly early, knocks him out. Horatio Gutierrez catches him fairly early, knocks him out. The Lobov fight, we realize this guy can't check leg kicks, and they're going to slow him down massively. And if you're a durable guy like Lobov, you're not getting knocked down the first 2 rounds, you can just wear on this guy, tire him out, use that leg kick to just slow his movement down, beat him. Lobov does that. Gray Manier, guy can't counter wrestle. That's what we learned from him. His fight against Rolando Dai, he didn't look good against Dai, man. The first couple of rounds, he's doing enough to get the nod on the scorecards, but that third round, I think he's in trouble. I don't think he looks good against Dai. So now we've learned stuff from him. You're not beating the Lobovs and the Gray Manons of the world. You're squeaking by the Rolando Dais of the world. What can you do against a guy like Jose Quinones? No. Nothing. Again, a close enough fight, but you're starting to scrape near the bottom of the barrel. I don't think Quinones is all that bad, but he represents that lower echelon talent in the UFC. He's a guy.
Quinones is pretty good.
He's 6-2, right? So he's not like he's a guy that's been around for a long time. He's not particularly the youngest. He trains at Alliance MMA, so he's training with good guys, but he hasn't done anything to jump off at you. He's not one of those guys that stands out in the division.
Top 15, but
no, he's not top 15. He's not top 25. And Ishihara should at least be beating these guys, but he struggles against Dai, who's lower echelon, and he loses his fight against Quinones, who's a step above lower echelon. But that's where he's at. And I think now with Peter Yan, I'm actually surprised they put this fight together, because with Yan, you want him to roll, you want him to look good, you want this to be a good signing for the 135-pound division. Let's build this guy up. He's already on a 3-fight winning streak. He's super exciting. He's got the goods. Let's build this guy up. But with Ishihara, at least there was a little bit of name cachet there. Like, you could have kept this guy around a little bit. You could have put him on a fight night main card, as long as it's not a particularly deep fight night card. He'd be good as a curtain jerker for a pay-per-view, not on the pay-per-view card, sorry, but as far as fight pass prelims goes, as far as, box prelims goes, you can put this guy on the undercard of a card. He's a recognizable name. He's got a cool little personality. He's always talking about his bitches. His bitches are gone at this point, by the way. I mean, when that bandwagon was rolling, bitches were on it. And at this point, it's like, oh man, they're all gone. Where are they at? But anyways, as far as actual skilled matchup goes, Peter Yan just seems like a little bit better everywhere, and Ishihara just seems like one of those, I hate saying the term because I honestly don't like the term, but like just one of those fuck boys. Got a couple early knockouts. People liked him. People want to follow him. People want to like him. But ultimately, we know where his ceiling's at, and it's not exactly that high.
We have Felipe Arantes taking on Song Yadong. Arantes is 8,300, minus 120 favorite. Yadong is 7,900 and plus 100. Interesting little fact about this. Song Yadong is actually training at Team Alpha Male right now.
Yep.
Who did Arantes fight in his last fight? Josh Emmett.
It was barely a fight. It was more like a one-sided ass kicking.
The problem with Arantes is, like, I think he used to be somewhat of a striker. And so, like, this guy just, like, he caught a couple with triangles or arm bars from like guard from the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Just,
that was his go-to.
He just fell in love with this, and it's just like in that Emmett fight, I think they scored Emmett with like 4 or 5 knockdowns in that fight. It's just like it was actually more like he was getting hit, and then like he was falling to his back, trying to trap him, trying to lure Emmett into coming into his guard so he could try to pull off a crafty submission. I just think, we have a close fight here. We're looking for dogs on the card. Song Yadong, let's be honest, we can't really take all that much away from a win over Kandari, first round submission win
pathetic
in his first fight. Yeah. But like he did what he had to do. And training at that gym, it's like that everybody at that gym has already got one of their guys ready for Arantes. They're familiar with the opponent. I'm gonna pick the Song Yadong here to get a win. I love Yadong.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there, Paul.
I had to.
Hopefully it's not Mudong. It's some other Yadong. Honestly, I don't think he gets the victory here. I'm not overly impressed with what I saw out of him. I think a lot of the time, his UFC debut, you go to China, you're in the Chinese market. Okay, we're going to have to put some local fighters on the card. Remember when Yuji Kui was on a UFC card? Actually, I think he made his debut in Singapore against Hoiston Wee. Mm-hmm. The guy's shit. The guy's the level below shit, okay? He's not very good. In fact, it's not even like you can be like, yeah, but he'd kick the shit out of anybody on the street. It's like, I don't know, man. Probably not. I bet you there's some guy on the street that'd be able to throw. Hell, we just saw a guy stealing a recycling bin. That guy probably lands on Yuji Kui.
We don't know that he didn't own that recycling bin.
I'm thinking he stole that recycling bin and or perhaps lived.
Maybe he's going to bring it back.
I believe there's a good possibility he may have lived in that recycling bin, Paul, which is very nifty because it's on wheels. You can push it around fairly easily.
It's like a motorhome.
Exactly. But with Yadong comes in here. He's on the Chinese card. He's just a local guy. If you look at him, I think he's 19 years old when he makes his UFC debut. Like, he's super young. He fights in the UFC. The biggest thing that people were looking back at was his loss. He lost in 2016 against a Russian fighter named Renat Ondar, who was 0-2, and Ondar beats him. He picked up a quality win over Edgar Skivers, who's a well-traveled Austrian guy who I think he's Latvian actually, but he's fought some okay level of competition, but I don't think he's UFC ready. I think he's still a young kid. I think he still needs to develop. But the UFC's in China. This guy's got a good-looking record. Let's put him on. They put him against the worst guy in the UFC, a guy that gets signed to the UFC specifically to lose in China to the local Chinese guy. I mean, Kadar has no business being in the UFC.
No.
They said he was a wrestler. He was not a wrestler. That's like saying Mike Jackson was a high-level striker. Not a high-level striker. Knows how to throw a punch. Not a high-level striker. This guy knew how to get a takedown. Not a high-level wrestler. So yeah, you're able to go out there and you're able to submit him, but where do you go beyond that? Felipe Arantes, if anything, is battle-tested. The guy's been in there with top guys. I mean, even getting dropped by Emmett 3 or 4 times in the first round, but living to tell the tale. This guy makes it a decision. This guy
More
goes
like flops, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was actually getting knocked down. I think he was trying to lure him in.
A couple of those times,
it got credited on
yeah.
DraftKings as
Well, you never know
knockdowns.
with DraftKings. Sometimes they do get credited, sometimes they don't get credited.
Yeah, Jared Brooks didn't knock down.
If that's not a
Torres.
knockdown, the knockdowns
I don't know
are
what is.
fictitious. I don't know. It's just a fiction in your imagination, Paul. But my point is here is that this kid's 20 years old, right? He's still got a long ways to go. He's still got a long ways to learn. Felipe Arantes is a journeyman. He's a guy that's been in there with good guys. Yeah, he had those submissions off his back, but even just beating guys like Yves Jean-Bouin, even beating guys like Maximo Blanco, those are all higher levels than he's going to get in Yadong. His last fight against Josh Emmett beats him. Josh Emmett goes on to knock out Ricardo Lamas in the very first round. Josh Emmett goes to go headline a card at least and lose, but where's Emmett gone since that fight? Straight upwards. So I don't really look at Arantes as, terrible performance. He moved up from 135 to 145 for that fight. Clearly was out of place. Now he's coming back to 135, where he's clearly better at home. He comes from a striking background. I think he's a little bit better of a striker than Yadong is. I think he's a little bit better off his back than Yadong is. Yadong's 20. He's still got some learning to do. As I mentioned, he's a young kid, and I feel like this is where those guys are going to lose. So it's a close line, but minus 120 for Arantes, who's a little more proven. The 8,300, only thing with Arantes is if he doesn't get that first round armbar, that second round armbar, I don't know that he's going to get the finish. So 8,300 really isn't that bad. I think he still gets his 83 points value worth out of him. So I'm going to take some plays on him. And the minus 120, I'll have a couple parlays anyways. I'll have a little bit of money on him, but again, this is another card where it's a lot of untrustworthy guys taking on low-level guys. So which direction do you go?
Yep, we got Shane Young taking on Rolando D. Shane Young is 8,700 on DraftKings, minus 165 on the betting line. Rolando D is 7,500 and plus 145. Who you got?
I mean, I always want to get behind D. I mean, we talk about the fact that, this guy come from a good boxing background. His old man was a really good boxer, former world champion, and he shows some decent glimpses. I mean, the Bruce Leroy fight, he's out of the water. Again, this is you jumping up from the regional scene, taking on very low-level guys, to taking on a guy that's been around, done everything that you can really do outside of win a world title or challenge for a world title, but a savvy veteran loses that fight against Ishihara. I didn't think he looked all that bad. I mean, he's obviously got grappling deficiencies, but as far as stand-up goes, he doesn't throw enough for my liking. He's not really a volume puncher. He's got big power, but you got to set those shots up, man. His kicks are okay, but he almost just wings these kicks. They're not set up properly. He very rarely masks them. He doesn't really feint a whole lot. He'll almost just boot the leg right from under you. But the kid's got power. If there's one thing we can give him, he's got power. Taking on Wuji Burin his last time out. He missed weight, actually came in at 148, so that's a big no-no. But outside of that, I mean, he at least looks like a developing fighter that's adding some tools to his game. The thing with Shane Young is that Shane Young's been around a long time on the Australian scene, on the Chinese scene. He's kind of a little more proven. So
Poor guy comes in against Alexander Volkanovski in his UFC debut. He looked so tough.
UFC debut.
He was super tough doing that.
UFC debut, short notice, Alex Volkanovski, and he at least made a decision. Damn, dude, that's not bad at all. So against Rolando D, his game plan, not very good. His ring IQ doesn't seem to be very high. And I feel like Shane Young's going to be able to get on top of him. Shane Young's going to be able to press him up against the cage. Shane Young's going to be able to tire him out. And once this guy starts to get tired, his hands drop, and he just tries to find that one big kill shot. But if that doesn't happen against Shane Young, a guy that's demonstrated a good ability to take a punch, I think he's just going to get grinded up and he'll give the decision. So looking at Shane Young, I feel like 8,700 is too much for my liking. I don't like it. I don't think he's going to get the finish. I don't think if you get a takedown, this guy's not going to get back up and necessitate another takedown. If you get a takedown, you'll just be able to ground and pound him. Maybe he could get, 80, 90 points just off a savage beating on the ground, but I don't know that that's going to be there. And, if Dai quits on a stool like he did against Bruce Leroy, then maybe, but outside of that, I don't know that the 8,700 is good enough for me. Minus 165 though. I don't mind that. It's not 2-1. Shane Young's a guy that's, like I said, he's developed a little better. He's shown some good toughness, and hopefully he's be able to go out there. And he's a guy that's used to traveling as well. I mean, he's fought a lot of his fights in both Australia, his native Australia, and in China. He's gone to Asia many times for fights. So I feel like he'll make the good transition going to Singapore, be able to adjust himself to the culture, adjust himself to the time zone, adjust to all these different things, make the weight. I mean, if we look at D struggled in his last fight to make weight, I think at 135 pounds. So now he's actually going up to 145 pounds for this fight. So he'll be a smaller guy than Shane Young, which will be easier for Shane Young to score those takedowns and hold him down. So give me Shane Young.
We got Song Kenan taking on Hector Aldana. Song Kenan 9,100 on DraftKings, minus 280 on the betting line. Aldana is 7,100 plus 240. I know what they're trying to do here. We got the Asian fighter and Song Kenan, who in his UFC debut got a 15-second knockout of Bobby Nasty Nash, your boy.
Yep.
And sure, he looked. It's hard to take a lot away from a 15-second fight like that. Like, yeah, sure, he sparked him, but
he sparked him. And Bobby Nash
is super chinny, and we don't really know.
Tends to get sparked.
Exactly. Like, Bobby Nash hits hard, but he also doesn't take the punches. He lives by the sword and he dies by the sword. That's how he rolls, right? Hector Aldana, though, the problem is, like, this guy, at least on his Tapology page, he hasn't fought since The Ultimate Fighter, and he got choked in 2015 by Enrique Marin is the last time he even fought. So it's like, this guy lost relatively early, or he lost on the show. He didn't even get to the finals or anything. And yeah, he got finished. And it's just like, what the hell is he getting signed, getting shipped halfway across the world for? To take on Song Kenan. I don't think Song Kenan's anything special, but like, this is an obvious setup match by the UFC.
No doubt about it.
I just don't know enough. I wouldn't want to lay the minus 280 just because I don't know enough about. I haven't seen enough tape. We don't know how good this guy is. Maybe Aldana on the other hand is just like, he got choked on the Ultimate Fighter or Tough Latin America Ultimate Fighter. And maybe the last 3 years he's been like putting in massive work and putting in massive improvements.
Yeah,
I don't have the answer to that. So like, Song Kenan, he could be a good leverage play on DraftKings 9,100. It's just like, I think a lot of people are probably going to spend up for either Peter Yan or the Leech, because the Leech is always in fire matchups. We'll get to Matthews and Anzai in a bit, but this is a real tough one. I don't really have a hot take on it. I would lean towards the underdog 7,100 plus 240. I'm not going to bet the plus 240, but 7,100 I would lean towards it and just hope that the hype is not real on Song Kenan.
Well, there's no real hype on Song Kenan, right? I think
maybe there is.
No. See, he's and I should know this because I fancy myself as like an MMA historian, but in the modern age, how many guys were signed to the UFC coming off of back-to-back losses?
Him.
Yeah, him. That's what I mean. And we actually briefly spoke about this, so I want to go back to that. But the last time they were in China, they need local Chinese fighters, okay? Yeah. That's why you see Song Kenan on the card. That's why you see Song Yadong on the card. Song Yadong, like I said, was a 20-year-old kid. He had no business of being there. But you give him an easy matchup, he can get an easy matchup. But how good is he? He's still low level. Give him a low level matchup, he can win it, and he does. Now you come back and you give him Felipe Arantes. That's not a gimme. That's not a low level matchup. The guy's not ready.
Yeah.
Song Kenan is in the same thing here, right? Song Kenan comes to the UFC on back-to-back losses. He shouldn't be in the UFC. It does not facilitate getting a contract. However, we're in China. We need some local guys. We'll give him somebody. They give him Bobby Nash, which really shouldn't have been a walkthrough, but he walks through. He knocks him out. But they do the right thing here. They don't give him a Felipe Arantes level guy.
Sign a guy who doesn't belong in the UFC to be like, hey, you lost on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America. Why don't we fly you over to Singapore? All expenses paid, by the way.
All expenses paid.
There you go.
You're coming in here to do a
He's
job.
coming in to take that L. That's
You
what they're
are
hoping for.
MMA's version of a jobber. You're here to do a job. Go out there, okay? Bruce Buffer, Bruce not going to be there. Somebody else is going to announce your
Probably
name.
gonna be Joe Martinez. That's my guess.
Who I actually like
I
a little
like
bit
Joe.
more. I
I
like
like
Joe
Joe.
Martinez more. Somebody is going to announce you. You're going to put your hand up. The fight is going to start. You're going to get hit some hot shit. You're either going to fold or you're going to give up a submission. And that's just the way it's going to be. You bring these guys in so that guys like Song Kenan can get a victory over and you build them up. You don't give them a tough enough guy. And that's why I think Arantes is going to pull the victory out over his guy. But Song Kenan, at least you gave him a proper matchup. Hector Aldana, I think you nailed it. Hector Aldana hasn't fought since 2015 when he lost to Enrique Marin. Enrique Marin ain't no welterweight, by the way. He's a small guy. He's able to submit you in 1 minute and 2 seconds. So apparently your submission defense ain't up to snuff. But here's the funny thing here, is that he fought twice in 2015 on The Ultimate Fighter. Those are both exhibitions. When was the last time the guy had a professional fight? 2013, Paul.
Jesus.
He has not fought professionally in nearly 5 years. You know the UFC didn't give him a contract after he lost in tough Latin America.
He did beat Alvaro Herrera.
Yeah,
on the,
he beat.
tough Latin America.
Yeah, it was a 2-round exhibition. He's able to get the victory. He
Unanimous
fights
decision.
2-round decision. And then you lose to Enrique
2013.
Marin.
How is this guy even here?
Well, they didn't sign him, obviously, after he lost in The Ultimate Fighter. He probably just went back to wherever he's at. You need a warm body. Maybe he knows somebody or he works out at some gym. And do you have any warm bodies in your gym? Yeah, we got this.
Hector hasn't fought in 3 years.
Hector is here, and Hector is
We
willing.
have a contract with him that he's allowed to train for free at this gym, and we get a certain percentage of his purse. He hasn't had a purse in 3 years, so
Yeah.
please save us.
Hector Aldana hangs out around the gym. Guys pay him $100 to kick the shit out of him. You know, he's a professional sparring partner. Send him out there. And with Song Kenan, at least, the guy's got some finishing power. We know he's got some power. I mean, knocking out Bobby Nash, yeah, it's not Bobby Nash, but like, dude, 15 seconds is 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, that's fast. He also doesn't have that bad of a submission game. He's also a guy that's kind of been fighting, you know, a decent level of competition for a little while now. He actually first hit my radar back in 2015. He had a canceled fight with Phil Baroni. Phil Baroni trying to make yet another one of his comebacks, had broken his ankle against Suzuki in 1FC. I got knocked out against Carl Parisian, took 2 years off. He's looking to come back. Song Kenan was his opponent. That falls out. But that fight, he was coming into the fight with Baroni, coming off a loss to Israel Adesanya. So he's fought Adesanya. Since then, he's gone to Japan. He's fought in 20-fight veterans. He's gone kind of, you know, he fought Brad Riddell, who's a massive dude and, you know, currently undefeated, packs a lot of power. He comes to the UFC. He beats Bobby Nash, who's a former, you know, standout wrestler out of Michigan, athletic guy. At least he's shown me something, whereas Hector Aldana has shown me absolutely nothing and has not fought professionally since 2005. So my thing though is, I know you talked about the 9,100 is that other people are looking to pay up, is that he will be a far less owned option than the rest of those guys. Yeah. And if he's there to look good and you're giving him the proper opponent for him to look good, kid needs to pass the test. And unlike his counterpart Song Yadong, he's not some 20-year-old kid that needs to develop still. He's 28. It's time to put up or shut up.
There's been a lot of questions about Yadong's actual age. He's been listed as like 23 in a fight just before he got onto the UFC. People are very unclear.
Very unclear. If he was Russian, I would say he's actually probably 49.
He'd be balding in 49, essentially.
Of course. And they'd be like,
22.
Miroslav is only 25. You're like, Miroslav is not fucking 25,
yeah,
man.
Miroslav's
no chance.
been mopping the mats at the gym for the last 22 years, pal.
Miroslav's not even his real name. Turns out he killed some guy and had to change it. That's what we're dealing with here, Paul.
Let's move on down the card. We have the biggest favorite on the card, Jake the Celtic Kid Matthews, taking on Shinsho Anzai. 9,400 for Matthews, minus 525 on the betting line, 6,800 and plus 415 for Anzai. When we were talking about Kenan and all these, and like all the other people at the top of the page, Matthews is here, but this fight, from a DraftKings perspective, kind of looks like it could be a stinker.
Anzai will do anything in his power
to make it slow paced, and like
that's how he wins. If he's going to win,
like,
this
I'm
is how
not
he's
sure Anzai is going to, like, you know, people may point at like the Holbrook fight for Jake Matthews and be like, he got wrestled, he got controlled, he got taken down, he got exploited. It's possible that Anzai's able to do that. Like, that's what Anzai kind of did in his last fight, but
That's exactly what
I think Matthews has improved enough to probably fend off a bunch of that. He looked great. He really looked like he had finally filled out that, he used to fight at 155, then he moved up to 170. We've always said that it takes a few fights. When Poirier moved up, it's like when he moved up from 145 to 155. It takes like 3 fights, and then all of a sudden you're just like,
damn, this guy's huge.
This guy's jacked at this weight class now. Same thing kind of happened for Jake Matthews in his last fight. He showed up against the Leech, Jingliang, and he just looked jacked. He looked like he had filled out. He looked like he had become a man from like being a kid to a man in his last fight. And he dominated that fight from pillar to post. He should have got the finish if the Leech didn't try to gouge his eyes out and not get penalized for it. I think Matthews wins. I think he maybe gets taken down once or something like that, or gets held up against the cage a little bit. Shinsei Anzai's kind of got that old man strength, but I think the obviously the better prospect and the kid with the upside is Jake Matthews here. I just think that this has high stinker potential where it's kind of dicey, stays on the feet a bunch, and you see like Matthews get like a 65, 70 point performance. I think he wins. Minus 525 is a little bit too rich for my blood here. I could see it going to the decision. I think it's kind of scary because he's the most expensive guy on DraftKings, but yeah. I definitely probably won't be playing any Jake Matthews here. What's your take?
Jake Matthews has certainly got the potential to spark this guy. I think he could knock him out. I think he could submit him. But again, is that you know with Jake Matthews he can do these things, but with Shinzo Anzai you know what he's going to do, and that's bulldoze. His striking is literally only used to close that distance so he can push your ass up against the cage and try to just bulldoze you. He's supremely strong. And with Jake Matthews filling out that welterweight frame, taking on good grapplers, that's where he struggled. You look back at, say, the Kevin Lee fight. Kevin Lee, way better than Jake Matthews, way better than Jake Matthews.
He's a world-class fighter.
Yeah, but there's when you realize, shit, take Jake Matthews down, bulldoze him to the ground. Maybe there's a little bit of a hole in his grapple because the guy's a good grappler, right? He doesn't mind being off his back. He doesn't mind throwing up submission attempts. He's a decent enough wrestler, but Kevin Lee, different levels. So Kevin Lee beats him. Then you get the Holbrook fight. Okay, well, Kevin Lee's on another level, but Andrew Holbrook, no worries. But then
that was a real red flag.
You see it. So now he goes up to 170, and this is actually a kind of a red flag, is that I picked Bojan Velikovic to beat him, and you texted me after the fight, because we talked about this. You were on Jake Matthews. You like Jake Matthews. I like Bojan, and you messaged me after the fight. You're like, dude, I don't know. I kind of think Jake Matthews actually robbed him in that fight. Like, wasn't a very clean performance.
I thought it was clearly a robbery, and I was on the other side. I was on Matthews.
You were on. That's what I'm saying, is that you should have been like, ha ha ha.
But he looked different. Like he's young, he's developing.
He looked good against Jingliang Li, but Jingliang Li is the kind of guy that's slow, plodding, stands right in front of you, right? Wants to get into a war, wants to throw some hands. So you can time this guy and you can take him down. And Jake Matthews is able to out-grapple this guy and beat this guy, but there's no denying that he was a different style of fights than the guys that are just looking to grind him. Shinzo Anzai represents a move back to that style of guys that just want to hold on to him and grab him. I honestly think that Jake Matthews is going to lock up a submission at some point. I also feel like Shinzo Anzai, his fight with UFC debut, Hong Kong, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, beat Saksiyama. I don't know why I'm trying to blank on this.
You keep talking.
Albert Mina. His fight with Albert Mina, he comes out, and then for the first time in a long time, Shinzo Anzai is like, let's throw some hands. Let's make this a fight. And it's a fun fight, man. It's a very exciting fight. But he gets clipped by Alberto Mina late in the first round, and he does get knocked out. And I feel like with Jake Matthews, at some point he's going to get an opportunity. At some point he's going to find an opening, and at that point he'll be able to hit him and he'll be able to knock him out. But there's no denying that Shinzo Anzai went into the Luke Jumo fight as an underdog. Jumo has good gas tank. Jumo's got good cardio. He's got good striking, Taekwondo guy. He's going to be able to just do enough, keep his fight standing when it's at distance, hit him, knock him out. Sure, never came to fruition. It was Shinzo Anzai that had that deeper, pool of cardio. He had more resistance. He was able to just pin him up against the cage. He was able to work him. He's able to cleanly get that unanimous decision. But, that was almost a year ago. And Shinzo Anzai is getting older. He's very one-dimensional. You got to go with the younger kid. The only problem is the 9,400. Possibly gets a first round finish, possibly gets a second round finish, but it doesn't scream 100% this guy's gonna spark and he gets a win.
It's like when you
in
look
9,400, like, you need almost a goddamn guarantee.
It's like a Gregor Gillespie. When Gregor Gillespie was 9,500.
You know what Gregor Gillespie's gonna get the money. You know Cyborg's gonna get the money's worth. This not 100% sure.
Tatiana Suarez is gonna pay off that thing.
They're going to pay those monies.
Gregor Gillespie, Khabib Nurmagomedov. These are the people that pay off these price tags. Jake Matthews, he averages like 65 points per fight. And like some of those are losses, but like even the wins, like they're dicey, they're close. And yeah, he should probably be able to find a submission here. But what if he doesn't? If this is like a greasy decision, he's not paying off 9,400. I think he's the guy I got to fade off the top.
To steal an old joke from old episodes of Bookie Beatdown, friends don't let friends bet on people who have lost to Andrew Holbrook. Okay?
It's true.
Just remember that.
It's very true. We got Vivian Pereira taking on Xioanan. Vivian Pereira is 8,800 minus 165 favorite. Xioanan is 7,400 and plus 145. Right off the top, Vivian Pereira, you don't want anything to do with 8,800 on DraftKings. I just don't see how she pays that price tag off.
First round submission. That's the only way.
On the other hand, she got 78 points in her UFC debut, but it was against Kaylin Curran. Like they gave her the biggest softball matchup in the division. They were trying to give Kaylin Curran a fight that she could win because they were like, this girl's good looking and marketable. And
they've been trying to do that for a long time.
They had to basically. I think she's done now. I think she got finally.
That is correct.
She got finally released.
She's fighting on the regional scene now.
So I see a low scoring fight here again. A fight that probably takes place on the feet. Pereira, for what she lacks, she's pretty quick on the feet, and she's tough. And like her one loss in her career is potentially the best woman in the world right now.
Yeah, she's also 5'3" and attempted to take on Tatiana Paul's-Gal Suarez, who, wasn't going to happen. I'm a little bit nervous, too. I mean, 8,800. This girl's taking this fight on short notice. I think she's coming in on like 2 weeks. She's replacing Nadia Kassem, who is with Mokhtar.
Mukhtarian.
Yeah, Mokhtarian.
Trash can.
Yeah, exactly. So at least if you're Yan Xioanan, how do you pronounce it?
I butchered it. Don't worry. Yeah. I said Yan Xioanan. That works for me.
Well, at least with Yan.
If you say it with some sort of confidence, it seems like you know what you're talking about. Yeah, except for anybody who has, Chinese roots would probably be like, these guys don't know what they're talking about.
Don't know. Yeah, no, honestly, with Yan, the one thing I took away from her UFC debut against Kayla Curran is like, she throws caution to the wind, dude. This girl just loads up on her punches and throws power. But if you're not having your way and you're starting to get grinded up on, like throwing power in every single punch, you're going to get tired. With Kaylin Curran, she's fragile, man. Like not fragile like you're going to knock her out and finish her, but she doesn't get her way, and oftentimes in these fights she doesn't get her way. She just folds apart, man. Folds apart completely. I didn't even think it was like that big of a runaway blowout, but all the same, I mean, that's where you're at. You had to beat Kaylee Curran, who's 1-5 in the UFC. Prior to that, she fought decent level of competition, albeit not very deep. With Vivian Pereira, I mean, she was 13-0 prior to taking on Tatiana Suarez.
Probably should have lost to Valerie Letourneau.
I thought she should have lost to Valerie Letourneau. The fight was in Canada, so certainly I thought that our judges would have had a little bit of hometown cook in
dicey,
there.
But it was another slow pace,
low
scoring fight. I don't have the number in front of me right this second. I guarantee both of their DraftKings scores suck. Like 8,800, that's the easy part of this equation here. It's like you don't want any Vivian Pereira. The question is,
give me an 8-week camp.
I think a little bit of Yan Xioanan. I think you can fit her in as one of the dog plays to help you pay up for other people.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to avoid that. I think that even if she gets the victory, I don't think it's going to be spectacular. I don't think she's going to finish Vivian Pereira. If it's going to be a 3-round fight, Vivian Pereira, she's so small that she's going to want to grapple. She's going to close the distance. She's going to hold her up against the cage. She's going to want to try to complete takedowns on her. And I just don't know that she's going to score that big. And finally, I mean, if you're Vivian Pereira, it's like, you had 2 fights in the UFC. You made your debut against Valerie Letourneau, who's a former title challenger, and you took on Tatiana Suarez, who's a future world champion. At least she's fighting, creme de la creme fighters. Letourneau obviously, ain't what she used to be and is currently on the back nine of her career, but at least you're taking on some back class fighters. Whereas I don't think I can say the same thing about Jan here. I mean, I think that she's, again, green. I hate to say all these Chinese fighters are green, and I ain't trying to, like, be a dick about it. But,
well,
like,
they haven't developed
not,
there yet.
Yeah, martial arts in China is huge, and that's developed, sure.
Yeah.
But, like, you're going to use wushu, or you're going to use, like,
it all
use
together
Aikido
into
and these
one.
people. Yeah, you don't have world-class wrestling. You don't have world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You don't have these things. You can match them up with low-end fighters, and they'll grow over time. But you can't throw them into the deep end and say, hey, fight fighters that are established, right? So if I'm taking a girl off the Chinese regional scene and I'm taking a girl off the Brazilian regional scene, like, dude, it's apples and oranges. And one of them's fought twice in the UFC against two, one current top 5 girl in the world and one former top 5 girl in the world. I mean, like, that's something to me, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
So a lot of these times you look at the tape and it's like, what can you really take away out of this, right? You see this a lot of times, 2 lower end fighters collide. You can watch tape on them, but ultimately they're going to be different versions of them when they physically step into the cage. And Pereira being on short notice makes me worried, and the minus 165 really isn't that bad. I don't mind the money line, but the 8,800 on DraftKings, like, even if she gets the win, she needs a first round submission. I don't see that happening, and so more than likely a pass as far as fantasy points go.
We have Naoki Inoue taking on Matt Danger Schnell. Inoue is 8,900 on DraftKings and a minus 190 favorite. Schnell, your boy,
my boy,
historically, is 7,300 plus 165. Are you going with the dog here?
Yeah, you know what?
I've seen a lot of people go with the dog.
I'm just saying it to say it, but, like, if there's a fight that Schnell can win, I mean, like, this could very well be it.
Inoue does not have much power in his hands, but it doesn't take much to knock out. Matt Danger Schnell has been in some greasy fights in the back of a Walmart and
Louisiana.
wherever in Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, that's at least a big town. He's from Minden, Louisiana.
Okay, there you go.
Minden, dog. Watch MTV Cage. That's where that Donnie guy, who the head coach and boyfriend for Andrea Lee, that was his gym. That's where he started, man. Schnell.
Yeah.
At that gym. Donnie went to jail for shooting a black guy 7 times, and Matt Schnell was left in charge of the gym. So this is MMA, everything ties in some way. Everybody knows everybody.
Sure.
Matt Schnell, yeah, again, watch this kid for a very long time. Just like a kid, you meet these kids sometimes, like, are they super talented? Maybe not, but they want it. They have a desire. He's from buttfuck nowhere, Louisiana. And actually, Dustin Poirier is from close by. Dustin Poirier was that first guy to kind of get out of Louisiana. He trained at Tim Crater's gym. He left Louisiana. He signed with the WEC. He actually fought in Canada a couple times for XMMA. Knocked out Derek Gauthier. Goes from there to the WEC, goes from the WEC to the UFC. These kids, they aspire to be like that. Matt Schnell was just one of those kids. I want to be like Dustin Poirier. But he did the exact same thing. He went from Karate Mafia in Louisiana to the best gym in Louisiana, Tim Crater's gym. Then he left Tim Crater's gym, went to American Top Team. Same exact thing that Dustin Poirier did. You know what I mean? Like, he put in the work, he's put in the effort, and skill-wise, he really isn't that bad. The thing that tends to fail him is his chin. His chin, that's one thing you can't train. No matter how much you want to fight in the UFC, no matter how much you want to be a world-class mixed martial artist, you can't train your chin. And that's kind of the one thing that's let him down ever so slightly. But when he was fighting for when he was fighting for Legends FC, Legacy FC, I should say, out of Texas, yeah, he was a developing fighter, looked good, was making improvements, good jiu-jitsu, really scrambly. At 125 pounds, the guy's very quick. He's good off his back. His wrestling's not so bad. His striking's pretty decent. Makes it to the Ultimate Fighter. He's in a killer cast of guys. I mean, these guys are champions from all different organizations. It obviously doesn't pan out for him on the Ultimate Fighter. Comes to the UFC, bad opening, a couple fights in the UFC, and then finally we started to see what this guy's capable of, at least to a small level. The reason I think that as a dog he can come out here and beat Naoki Inoue is that Inoue's got 0 KO victories on his record, right? He comes from a karate background, and I believe he's a black belt in like Hapkido and a black belt in some other traditional form of karate. And as much as he has striking roots, he's a grappler. The thing is that his wrestling is shit, man. I mean, his last fight against De Thomas, he doesn't get a single takedown. De Thomas blows takedowns, gets 2 of them, no good on the ground.
That guy was on steroids, bro. I couldn't believe when that guy busted.
Yeah, but you see guys like this all the time. What's his name?
Mullerin.
Oh, the fact that he was on steroids. These guys are all on steroids, right?
This guy, I didn't. Yeah, all the jokes were about like I didn't know McDonald's was on the USADA ban list.
Yeah, well, there's probably so much steroids in the meat that you popped on it. But anyways, all jokes aside, with Inoue, he struggles in the wrestling department. And he doesn't really have the power. So how's he going to beat Matt Schnell, right? If with Matt Schnell, if you got to hit him and you got to hurt him and you got to knock him out, well then if that's off the table, this kid's never knocked out anybody. Well then. Okay, well, what else are you going to do? Well, I'm really good on the ground. Maybe I'll take him down, but your wrestling's not very good. Matt Schnell's a little faster than you. He's a little more athletic than you, and his wrestling's a little bit better than you. So Schnell just keeps the fight standing. He'll be able to just outwork him, and that's kind of how I see this fight going. I like Naoki Inoue. I think that his sister, Mizuki Inoue, who fights for Invicta FC, is one of the top girls in the world. I'm completely sold on her. Cardio, fantastic. I think this kid has got very good cardio. His grappling's certainly getting better. His last fight, he actually did look really good. It's just that he's a developing fighter. You gave him a low-level opponent. He's able to learn a couple things. He's able to, work off his back. He's able to land some strike. Fine, that's all proper. That's all well and good. But now you're taking on Matt Schnell, who's just a little bit of a stiffer test. Doesn't have a great record in the UFC, but I mean, the skills are all there. If you're not going to knock him out, you're not going to take him down. The Schnell could just definitely outpoint him. The $7,300, I mean, you talk about, maybe having some shares of Yan because, hey, she's only $7,400. Like, no, I like Matt Schnell over Inoue way more than I like her over Viviane Pereira. Inoue, going back this, he's only 20 years old. Like, sky's probably still the limit for him. Imagine what this kid's going to look at 25 when his wrestling's a little bit better, and his striking's a little bit better, and he matures a little bit better. Maybe he starts to develop a little more power in his strikes. Kid's going to be great at 25. If the kid's still going at 30, he's going to be even better.
Maybe he's made a lot more improvements than you're giving him credit since his last fight, though.
Well, maybe Matt Schnell has as well. Maybe Matt Schnell has as well, Paul. I mean, he's still relatively young.
Can't fix that chin, bud.
Trains at American Top Team. And yeah, that's not fixing his chin, but I mean, at least you could fix other...
I think Xioanan is maybe a better cash game. There's less risk.
Here's the thing.
Much more likely to go through
rounds. What does no chin really entail? And let's be honest here. Andrei Arlovsky doesn't have a chin. Andrei Arlovsky took Tai Tuivasa's best punches. It was fine. Well, why is that? Like having a bad chin is not... I'm Anthony Hamilton.
It's the location
flick me
of
in the
punches.
Head. Yeah. But I mean,
somebody who's been training karate their whole life probably has great accuracy, rather than some former rugby player from Australia who just tries to hit you as hard as he can and doesn't actually have any pure accuracy on his punches.
Yeah, but
that's where I would say.
Fair.
But there was a wise man named Kenny Florian, I believe, who once said, "Precision beats power, and power beats speed."
Of course.
Is that what it was? Kenny Florian said that.
Kenny Florian, of course. Screw Mike Goldberg. Schnell has only been knocked out twice in his career. Rob fought Hector Sandoval. Hector Sandoval is a small little guy from Team Alpha Male who wings, heavy overhand punches. And Rob Font's Rob Font. The guy's an excellent striker. Both of those guys are capable of knocking out opponents. Inoue, it's not shown that he's capable of knocking out an opponent. So again, it's not like Schnell's the favorite, and I like Schnell. He should cruise over this kid. Schnell's the underdog, and you're getting good value on Schnell. 7,300 on DraftKings is more than acceptable. Plus 165 is totally fine by me. So you said it earlier, we're looking for some dogs. Who are some of these dogs that have a chance? And when I look at Matt Schnell, I think he's one of these dogs that has a chance. Do I love it? Again, no, it's hard to love. He's the underdog for a reason, and this is a close card in general. There's not a whole lot of picks that I love, per se, but I've picked Schnell over better guys in the past, and I feel like Naoki Inoue is going to get humbled at some point, and maybe this is the one that people don't see coming.
Ulka Sasaki takes on Janelle Lausa. Ulka Sasaki is 9,000 on DraftKings and minus 300 on the betting line. Lausa is 7,200 and plus 250. Who you got?
Yeah, again, Yuka Sasaki has the path of victory here. Take Janelle Lausa down.
When you're that much taller.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This guy at 25 is a much better fighter than he was at 135 pounds. Because he's tall and lanky. We totally get that. Wrestled in high school in Japan. Probably not the highest level. But he came from a wrestling base. He's a decent grappler. Comes to the UFC. Has some initial success. Beats Roland Delorme. When he takes on good grapplers, the Leandro Isas of the world, yeah, he can't out-grapple those guys. His last fight against Formiga, again, you can't out-grapple those guys, right? Those guys are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, top of the game, right? Some of the best grapplers in the division in the UFC. Can't beat them. But lesser grapplers than him, he's going to beat these guys. As far as knocking him out goes, Taylor Lapilus did it at 135 pounds. But at 125, I just feel like he's a little bit better than that. His fight with Scoggins was an eye-opener for me. He should have lost the fight. Scoggins, being Scoggins, stuck his head right into that choke, and it was very frustrating to watch. But he actually landed 2 takedowns on Scoggins. Scoggins is great at scrambling and a very good wrestler. But the fact is that he's able to go out there and at least complete some takedowns on a good guy. His takedowns really aren't that bad. Because he's long, he's got some leverage. He's got a good outside trip. He's got a decent single leg. And he's kind of big and strong at 125 pounds. So I don't mind him. The thing is, to me, he's very untrustworthy because his striking is still a work in progress. Someone like Janelle Lausa is going to have that boxing advantage. He's going to have the striking advantage. He's going to be able to hit this guy. His defense is not great. One thing that really alerted me when he fought Taylor Lapalus, Sasaki, was he got a takedown on Lapalus. Lapalus gets up, hits him, hurts him, follows him up, and beats him. But in other subsequent fights where people said the same thing, Willie Gates is a good scrambler. He's a decent enough wrestler. He's got good power. He'll hit, Sasaki takes those guys down and beats them on the ground. Janelle Lausa is not a better wrestler than any of those guys. He's not a better wrestler than Willie Gates. He's not a better wrestler than Justin Scoggins. He's not a better grappler than a Leandro Issa or a UCR Formiga. He's not. He's not a better grappler than Wilson Hayes. Like, do you know what I'm saying? These are the guys that have beaten Sasaki. Strong, stocky, high-level grapplers. Janelle Lausa is quite the opposite. Not a grappler. He's a striker. And he has serious problems keeping his fight standing. I mean, he's getting styled upon when he gets taken down that easy. So I think Sasaki goes out there. I think Sasaki gets the takedowns. Janelle Lausa has not been finished in any of his 2 UFC losses, so I don't know that Sasaki's going to be able to get the submission.
But Sasaki's
and for that reason, the 9,000, he is crafty because he's got an awkward style.
To Wilson Hayes' back, like, if you can compete with Wilson Hayes on the ground, you're pretty good.
That's what I'm saying. This guy's good. He's a good grappler, no doubt about it. But the upper echelon guys, he's just not at that level. At this level, shit, what level? What's Janelle Lausa going to have on the ground that this guy hasn't seen before? But he's coming in on relatively short notice. Cutting to 125 has got to be a pain in the ass. I mean, he's kind of a big
he's like
guy.
5'11" or something.
Yeah, he's a tall, gangly guy. So I don't know that it's going to be a super easy weight cut. So if he comes over, has a bad weight cut, doesn't have 3-round cardio, Janelle Lausa keeps his fight standing and bops him up, shit, that's risky. If I'm going to play a punt play on some teams, Janelle Lausa at 7,200, not the worst play in the world, right? It's just, I like some of these other Matt Schnell for only $100 more, or go all in and take a Daichi Abe at 7,000 for a real GPP punt. Those are my preferences, but I'm not completely writing Lausa out. It's that on paper, stylistically, how does Sasaki lose this? Like, the path is there, dude. Just go take him down. You are way better on the ground than him. But it's never that easy. It's never as easy as saying, oh, this guy's shitty on the ground and this guy's got a good ground game. Put 2 and 2 together. It's like, this guy's been hit before. He's been hurt before. He's not particularly a very good stand-up guy. And if he can't take Lausa down, and Lausa's probably spent a lot of this time just trying to stay up. If I know my problem is takedown defense, but Bulutov takes me down no problem, and he's a very good grappler, but subsequent efforts, I'm just getting grounded all the time. Work on your takedown defense, stuff a couple takedowns. If you can stuff a couple Sasaki takedowns, hit him and hurt him, yeah, maybe he could pull this out. And with Sasaki, dude, the Lapalus fight, he got hit, and he flopped over, dude. He waved the white flag and was like, all right, I'm done with this. So is it possible for Lausa to get a second round finish after maybe a greasy first round? Absolutely. Definitely possible, but logic would certainly dictate that Sasaki should be able to get this victory. And at minus 300, I like him way more than I like Jake Matthews at minus 525, or the other big favorite, Peter Yan. You know, at least there's, a case of octagon jitters there. Even 280, Kenan Kenan. Do I like that? No, but the minus 300 Sasaki seems a lot safer, so he's probably one of the better big favorite picks.
Elite people.
Yeah,
in the world, and he doesn't look completely out of place against those guys. Lausa, anytime he faces just about anybody, even Eric Shelton. Eric Shelton has scored. Yeah. Putting an absolute clinic on him.
5 takedowns on him, and important to note that that Eric Shelton got 5 takedowns on him, and then I think he had 8 passes on the ground. He's not even just getting taken down; he's getting taken down and styled on. And that would be a great way to rack up points for Sasaki.
One thing I will ask you quickly before we get out of here:
there actually is one more fight on the card.
No, it's not, though.
Well, is DraftKings not going to add it, or what's the case?
It was already added, but it's not on the UFC website. It's not on Tapology.
It is on Tapology.
It was a fizzled bout, isn't it? Fabian versus...
No, it's right there.
I swear to God, it's not on the UFC website.
Well, the thing that confused me...
I didn't actually put it down as the pricing, because actually when I looked yesterday, Fabian versus against Jingliang Kim.
Jingliang Kim.
Was listed as a fizzled bout on the Tapology page.
Okay, so
did that change? Is that actually a thing now?
This is what I'm thinking is because I haven't really seen anything official on, but this is what I'm thinking. The fight is on the card.
I'm looking this up on the fly now. Though.
Okay, well
you keep talking.
No. But here's why I think it's on the card. Okay.
Okay.
It's not on UFC.com.
It's on DraftKings thing, but I just didn't do it.
Is it on UFC.com? You're saying no, correct?
No.
Okay. Punch in Melinda Fabian, UFC.com into a Google search.
I'm doing that right now. This is riveting.
Yeah, well, I feel like by the time the show comes out, they'll probably just re-add it. But the reason why
it's on DraftKings, that's for sure.
It's on DraftKings. It's on Tapology.
They didn't know.
So it's on 2 of the 3 main things we care about. It's on an actual Fight Finder website that's listing it. It's on DraftKings. They've got a price for it. They're listing it. UFC.com, and we know how unreliable they are. They're the ones dropping the ball. But did you punch in Melinda Fabian, yes. UFC.com? Do a Google search.
Next fight.
No, just click on her profile. Click on her UFC profile. Okay? It's listed that she's fighting Jingliang Kim on that card. Correct?
Now it is, yes.
So that fight is happening.
Okay, well, we have Daddy arm legs. Jingliang Kim, who's like 5'6", and she's got a 72-inch reach.
6-inch reach advantage in this fight.
Taking on Hungarian striker. I know actually the pricing of them because I didn't make the board yet, but
totally fine.
You're seeing the board right now, actually. It's 8,400 for Fabian, or no, 8,400 for Kim versus Fabian, who's 7,800. As for I don't even think Best Fight Odds even has odds on that fight though yet, do they?
All I'm saying is
I think there's something really strange going on with this one. It's like nobody seems.
It's a low end fight.
Literally,
it's a low end fight on a low end card, and somebody just happened to not add it.
You know who also didn't add it?
Best Fight Odds.
Best Fight Odds. There's no odds out there for that fight.
Strange. I think we should talk about it.
I'm not sure if it's happening. Quickly. All right. Well, we have the one girl who has super long reach, taking on a kickboxer, stays on the feet.
Yeah, he pretty much broke this one down.
It's probably relatively close. I'm gonna lean towards the one with the girl with the insane, ungodly, not human reach, who got a win over Justine Quiche. But was it really a win? Yeah. But it was real dicey, real close. But she doesn't look completely out of place. Whereas we got the 125-pound Fabian coming off of the worst season of The Ultimate Fighter. Give me the Korean in Asia, but I don't really think I want 8,400 on my DraftKings squad. Yeah, there's my breakdown on a fight that I didn't even think was going to happen.
Oh, that's totally fine. I think this is a card that a lot of people are leaving their tape study to the last minute. Although, it's early on Saturday morning, so you got to get on it sooner rather than later. But with Melinda Fabian, I think this fight's actually going to be really entertaining, to be perfectly honest. She's a Hungarian striker, and then you nailed it pretty much there. Hungary, not exactly known for their mixed martial artists, outside of Adam Borks, who's a very good prospect, but even him, at least he's training full-time in the U.S. With Fabian, though, is that she's got absolutely no ground game. Zero ground game. Not happening. No good. You look at her fights in the regional scene, she's losing. She loses by submission. She loses her single fight in the house by submission. She gets that one-off fight on the tough finale. She takes on Deanna Bennett. Deanna Bennett should be a much better wrestler than her. But, dude, what a terrible fight that was. Bennett can't complete any takedowns on her. She literally just holds her up against the cage the entire time. Fabian loses a point for grabbing the cage in the second round, and it ends up being a draw. But at least we got to see some glimpses, some decent striking. She almost knocked out Bennett with a head kick in the first round, at the end of the first round, kind of saved by the bell. This girl just wants to strike. She doesn't want someone who's going to punch her or hold her up against the cage the entire time like Bennett did. And I feel like with Jingliang, with her opponent here,
Jingliang Kim.
Jingliang Kim, yes, Jingliang Kim. At least with Jingliang Kim, that's what she wants to do as well. She wants to stand with you. She wants to strike with you. Her fight with Justine Quiche, I thought was fairly entertaining. She threw a decent gas tank. I was all over Quiche there. First of all, the fight was in South Carolina, which is kind of where Quiche is. She's originally from Russia, but she lives in South Carolina. I thought she'd be able to get the non-close fight. She outstruck this girl, but this girl landed the better shots because I think you mentioned it. The reach. She has such a long reach that she intercepts you coming in, and if you decide not to come at her and you stay on the outside, again, she just chews you up. Fabian's got a life lifetime of not mixed martial arts, so like traditional martial arts under her belt, started training at a very young age, but she never really started training MMA until 2015. I think she's still a neophyte in this game. She's still very young in this game, and I feel like the more experienced Korean fighter should be able to come out here, get the victory. She didn't really look all that bad against Lucy Pudilova. She didn't really look all that bad against Justine Kish. She's got some submissions on her record. And with Fabian's so bad on the ground that if a takedown does happen to occur, she'll be able to get the submission. But man, those long-ass arms, that's easy to lock something up in transition. Maybe you can get a Darce on her. Maybe you can get an Anaconda. And if you don't want to grab with her, because that's really not your thing, I mean, Xioanan's been same thing. She's been training since like grade 8. She's someone who's been training for a very long time. She's very well versed. I think she's going to be able to beat Fabian. I feel like this is a fight that's clearly flying under the radar, Paul. I mean,
I don't even know if it's happening, Cody.
People don't even know
actually,
if it's happening.
not listed as it was listed as a fizzled bout yesterday when I was making the graphics.
So obviously, it's been adjusted.
So now it's not a fizzled bout on Tapology. Still not on the UFC's main page, I don't think, yet.
Well, they're just slow
It
to
is
the
on
party.
DraftKings, but
They're
I
slow
was
to the
assuming
party.
that DraftKings was just slow to the punch. Who knows? If it is on, you can be sure that if I am up watching this fight at 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning / Friday night, it's whether I went to bed in between, who knows.
Depends if you had any Jägermeister the night before.
If I did have a real shot of Jägermeister into my cold beer, you best know that I love taking pictures of Kim's arms and just making social commentary on Twitter. So look for that around 2 o'clock in the morning. One thing I wanted to say before we get out of here, if we go and look at like these top ranges, like who is the guy to lock in above 9,000 and above? So you got Sasaki, you've got Kenan, you've got Li Jingliang, you got Peter Yan, and you've got Jake Matthews. Like, who's the guy that is your lock from that range?
Yeah, I'm looking at Song Kenan. I think if I'm playing a GPP and I want to win big money, then he's got a lot less of a name than some of the other high-priced plays. Coming in at, he's obviously an expensive guy at 9,100, but he's going to be, I feel, less owned than the other plays above him.
You're probably right about that.
And fact is, this is a setup, dude. Like, I'm not asking you to go out there. I'm not asking you to go out there and play with the big boys. I'm asking you to win, a very rudimentary level fight.
There is a bit of a question, but it's not as much of a question. Who was it with Claudio da Silva a few weeks ago when he was taking on
Nordine
Taleb? We were just like, the big question mark, this guy hasn't fought in 4 years, but it's like, we knew that like he had actually won some legitimate fights before that. Hector Aldana hasn't done shit.
No, he hasn't done shit.
In fact, getting brought in for nothing.
We don't know what the hell he has been doing.
Good point.
So this is just it's set up for him. So if I'm looking at an expensive play, he's one of those expensive plays. If I'm looking for mid-range plays, that could be pretty good. Jessica I like it, but it's not going to score enough. So that one's out for me. Tyson Pedro at 8,200. If he scores that first round knockout, 8,200, that would be huge for me. I would definitely like that.
Oh, we don't have to go through the whole card.
I know,
I was basically saying
a couple guys that I like.
High range and low range, basically, are what I'm looking for.
For me, the low range, I'm taking a shot on it, Deichiabe. The high range, Kenan-san.
And everybody else, let us know in the comments section.
Absolutely.
Who your lock above 9,000 and above, and who your little sneaky dog play from, let's say, 7,900 and below are for UFC Singapore. My guys, you got up some pretty good points about Song Kenan. I think Sasaki is on a level above Lausa as well. I'm full out fading Jake Matthews, though.
He'll be high.
That's happening for sure.
He could get the
in terms
finish,
of underdog plays. I'm not as big on Schnell as you are, but Xioanan, I'll take maybe a couple shots on her.
Straight fade on me.
And Donald Cowboy Cerrone, give me 5 rounds, Cowboy. Yeah. Let's go.
7,600, not a bad price.
Is Leon Edwards, because Don Cowboy Cerrone has become a gatekeeper at this point, basically.
Yeah, but
he's a gatekeeper to the top 10. He's not like one of the low-level gatekeepers.
Here's the issue.
You beat him, you're probably getting a top 5 opponent in your next fight.
The thing is that these are the kind of plays, like these are the kind of contests on DraftKings that don't fill, because a lot of people, A, don't really give a shit, B, don't really know that the card has even such a whack start time. They can't watch it. Maybe they're not playing it. But if you're a casual fan. You don't know everybody on the card. You want to play this card.
Cowboy's
You're
going to be
gonna
super
play
tough,
Cowboy. He's only 7,600. He's one of the few guys on the card you even recognize. You're gonna play this guy. Matt Schnell, not gonna get played. So I do like Donald Cerrone. I'm gonna have some shares of him as well. Don't get me wrong. I think his ownership should be fairly high.
All right, that is it for us this week. I want to thank Chad Dow. The stock is rising on Chad Dow doing all the sweet cuts behind the camera there. I want to thank Cody Saftic for breaking down the fights with me. For both of those guys, I am Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
That Mayo experience! Experience!